I've been with the Nye County Sheriff's Office for 3 years.
3 years. Okay. Sheriff was also telling me that you spent EMT. Tell us a little about EMT world.
Yes, so I was an EMT with a community ambulance in Las Vegas, close to a year, and from there, that's where I gained most of my medical experience. While I was before I became an EMT, I was in the EMS Training Center of Southern Nevada, where that's where I pretty much learned how to become an EMT. They pretty much got us certified to where we're able to do um, EMT basics and stuff like that. So after that, then I did a couple of ride-alongs with community ambulance, and then I worked with community ambulance, and that's where I got my medical experience.
Why did you decide to make the career shift from one first responder field to the other?
So the reason I made a shift was because I was an EMT. Originally, I was a police officer. I wanted some medical experience. I got some medical experience with community, and then I wanted to go back to being a police officer. So I ended up going back to being a police officer, and then I wanted to try out Nye County because I've seen their videos on YouTube, and I pretty much liked how it was out there. So I applied out there, and then I got accepted. So being cross trained in EMS and in law enforcement for me, it benefited me.
Um, Kind of elaborate more on that. So, obviously, officers and stuff, you guys are trained in basic first aid, and when you guys arrive on various scenes, um, what kind of extra training does being an EMT give you when you go and respond to different things?
So for being an EMT, I know we're trained in law enforcement as far as like basic CPR, stop the bleed and stuff like that, learning how to put on a tourniquet and stuff. But as far as being an EMS, I was able to see like other medical things that may happen, like could be from an overdose, could be someone whose blood sugar is low, diabetic and stuff, or it could be something to where it involves infants. It's like in this case, it was CPR. And so when I was an EMT, I was able to ride on the ambulance with paramedics and advanced EMTs and go on calls for service that they would see on everyday basis, which kind of helped me get experience to where I'm able to use that when I came out here to Nye County.
Um, Obviously, Nye County is rural Nevada. Access to to the nearest big hospital medical center is a little bit ways away. So for this type of training, like this is pretty vital, would you say?
Yes, I would definitely say it is vital.
What are some other calls that you've been on that this has kind of come in clutch for you?
For me, I would say um, being able to see the difference between someone who's diabetic, who their sugar's low, compared to someone who may be overdosing on unknown pills or anything. For me, being able to see some of those differences in those like pinpoint pupils or if they're sweating and stuff like that. So being able to see the difference in diabetics and the difference in someone who may be overdosing on a narcotic and being able to differentiate on that or knowing exactly what I need to do, whether I need to give them Narcan or whether their sugar may be low. So where we may have to just wait for medical to get there. So I can always update medical and let them know what I have as well.
And how does that also help the EMS who is arriving on scene to take over, getting that information from you? I'm sure that helps their job, immensely.
Yes, so I believe it helps them as well because they're not going in there as blind. I'm able to get on the radio, update them on what I have to where they're able to form a plan of what they're going to do when they arrive. So that way they're more prepared to be able to assess the situation and give care to the patient.
Okay. So kind of take us through your shift as you are getting this call about the infant in the pool. Just kind of take us down the line.
Okay. So I was doing our normal routine patrol. I was driving in the area, and then I saw on our computer that we had a priority call where it came in originally as a agency assist. Well, originally it came down as an unconscious. So then I was reading the details and it said there was a 1-year-old baby in the pool, possibly drowning. So then I activated my lights. I went to the call. I knew the area, so I knew that I was relatively close to the area. So I assigned myself. Our dispatchers were able to dispatch our fire and medical and as well as additional units. I was the first one arrived on scene. When I arrived there, I saw the infant. She was unconscious, not breathing, and blue. Family members were, in fact, attempting to do CPR as well. And then that's when I arrived. I took over, and I was able to communicate with the family while I was able to give aid to the infant. And ultimately, while I was doing CPR on the infant, she was able to start breathing on her own. She did, in fact, cough up a lot of water that she had in her lungs. I ended up rolling her to her side as well, too, prior to that. So that way she was able to get some of that water out of her lungs. And then upon our fire emergency team, they arrived and they took over CPR, to which at that point she was alert, conscious, and she was crying. So that's always a good sign. And then from there, they took over and they transported her to UMC trauma peds, to where they stated that she made a full recovery and there was no long lasting injuries on her.
What, seeing the outcome, and knowing your background, your training, what was that? What did that mean to you?
To me, it's an incredible feeling to know that the infant made a full recovery. And it was good to be able to have coworkers and just in general, our agency, how we're pretty close knit, to where everyone checks up on you to make sure you're okay. Because typically, one of the worst calls is anything that involves children or infants and stuff. So that can ultimately take a toll on you. So it was good to be able to see that everyone was able to check on me, make sure I was okay. And then getting the update that I was glad to hear that the baby made a full recovery made me feel a whole lot better.
What was going through your mind as you were assigning yourself to the call? You knew that it was a unresponsive infant, in a pool. What was going through your mind at that point as you were arriving on scene? Like, to kind of talk a little bit about that.
So for me, when I read the details, and unconscious in a pool. So for me, immediately I was like, okay, this may turn into cardiac arrest. So I immediately turned on my lights. While I'm driving there, I'm kind of crisis rehearsing in my head. What am I going to come in contact with? Am I going to arrive? Is the baby going to be okay? Am I going to arrive and the baby's still in the pool? So I was kind of playing through my head all these types of scenarios that could happen. So then that way, when I arrived, I at least kind of gave myself, based off the details and based off of just my experience, just kind of planning on what I may come in contact with. So kind of like grab my AED just in case. I had my gloves on, and I pretty much communicated with the family to where it was and got as much information through our dispatchers of what the nature was and if there were any updates and stuff. So they were able to give me updates to where I was able to kind of like formulate a plan for me. So when I arrived, I knew what I needed to do, whether it was start CPR, whether if the baby was breathing, I was going to roll it on its side to see exactly, make sure there's see if I can hear any water in her lungs or anything like that. So
were you prepared to, if you had to, just take off your radio and stuff and jump in the pool?
yes, absolutely.
What if you had to do that? What, just kind of your mentality and I mean, to have to do that type of a rescue, just kind of talk to us like what that would have been like for you.
So for me, it unfortunately wouldn't have been the first circumstance to where we've had an infant in CPR in progress. This is unfortunately it would have been my second one of the year. The first one was my partner and I, we ended up taking the baby, and we ended up taking the baby to our nearest hospital. While I was doing CPR in progress, unfortunately that baby didn't make it, but it was just more so the crisis rehearsing, where it was like, we live in a rural town out here. So like you said, backup or fire may be a distance away, to where if we're in an area to where we can at least try to give someone a fighting chance, we will. So in regards to this one, For me, I would have just immediately just taken off my belt keepers, which if I take those off, my whole belt will come off, so it makes it a lot easier. As far as that, I would have just most likely jumped in the pool, not even thinking, because my main goal is, of course, the infant at that point, and just I would have been doing as best as I could until at least fire arrived.
Have you had a chance to check in with the family and see the infant now that I'm sure she's out of the hospital? And have they had a chance to, just kind of thank you after the fact, on a personal level?
So I ended up calling the family, I want to say the day after and probably a few days after that as well, just to kind of follow up with them to see how the baby was doing. They were very appreciative. They thanked me a lot. I haven't had a chance to actually reunite with the family itself, but from the information that they gave me, it sounded like they were doing better.
Okay. Um, and then, as we are heading into the prime of summer, um, what is the EMT training like as you get ready to go on these calls? I'm sure you're going to get a lot of like heat related issues as you go to these calls. Well, kind of talk to us about that, about what that's going to be like for you with your training and background.
So for me, with my training and background, I have my own EMS bag, my own EMT bag that I have ice packs, heating packs, I have tourniquets, I have chest seals. I have pretty much everything that when I was working with the ambulance company, we had in our ambulance. So I pretty much have that in my patrol car as well, just so that way I'm prepared for any situation that may arise. Because at times I may have to switch from EMS to patrol or police, or I may have to vice versa. So for me, it's a matter of just making sure that I have all my tools and all of my supplies that I need to make sure that no matter the situation, I'll be able to adapt to it and overcome it.
Does the Nye County ever specifically dispatch you to a certain call because of your training and background?
I'm not necessarily sure. I know typically if it is anything, because most of our deputies and our agency, we're all trained in CPR of some sort or medical experience. But for me, um, my squad knows that I have a little bit of medical experience. I'm not the only one, but there's a couple who were former paramedics or in the military and stuff. So they have that same background as me. Um, so I would say for the most part, we have a pretty diverse group of deputies who come from all different backgrounds and they're able to render aid to the community if need be.
Okay. I think that pretty much wraps it up for me. Like, great stuff. Were you able to cross our fingers? Were you able to get the video or not?
I wasn't. I looked on our body cameras, and unfortunately, it wasn't on there that I could find in our search. I would just probably have to see if our administration would be able to pull it up because when I looked it up, I wasn't able to find it on there.
Okay. And then would you be able to, before you start shift, maybe just give us a couple little video clips and just kind of show us your EMS bag a little bit so we have some video. And then were you able to, can you tell me the address that you?
So I was able to locate it. It was on a street called Wagon Street.
Wagon Street.
Yes. So I believe it's like Wagon and Bronco. And I believe those two and the way the street it turns into Bronco. So ultimately, I think the call came out that it was on Bronco Street, but our dispatchers, they do a really good job at confirming the address and trying to locate the appropriate address. So they were able to give us the update to the actual address. Because I know, and someone who's in high stress situation, may not necessarily remember common things like their address and stuff like that. So our dispatchers did a good job at confirming that address and able to locate it.
So I just told the photographer Wagon and Bronco Street, they would
Yeah.
know where to go.
Yes.